The best way to know how this is a wound is to simply ask yourself, is this serving me today or not? That's as much as like you need really to ask yourself if this is a wound. Is this hurting me today or not? Is it serving me today or not? Is it creating connection or disconnection in my relationships or not? Is it creating regulation or dysregulation in my life or not? That's enough that you need to basically identify and recognize, is this a mother or a father wound that I have in my life? Now, let's go a little deeper here. I want you guys to do a little exercise. I want you all to take your books and your pens for a second. I want you to simply journal now. What are the ways my mother wound challenges me in my life today? Okay, so I want you guys to journal that for yourselves today. What are the ways my mother wound, which is basically my relationship with my mother, or the difficulties I had with my mother, or the dysregulation that I had in the connection with my mother, or the expectations I had from my mother, any of those. What are some of the ways it affects me in my life today? I want you to just journal that for a few minutes together, okay? I'll give you some ideas. For some of us, it may, it may show up as a complete lack of confidence. And I don't feel confident in myself enough to, choose things and not be afraid of the consequences. I feel really wounded by my self-worth. I don't know that I deserve good things or successful things, and I feel afraid to go after them. I play really small, and I find myself continuously shrinking myself just to fit in and get approval, because that's what I learned when I was growing up. I learned to people please, or I learned to prove myself, or I can't trust people very easily. I've learned to, emotionally exaggerate my emotions to get validation. Some surface level ways it can also show up is, my mother wound brings up a distrust I have with other women, an inability to make easy friendships with other women. It keeps me very victimized. Here's a huge one, a lack of drawing boundaries. Actually, this is a really, 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 really big one, especially with the mother wound, more than the father wound, is a lack of drawing boundaries. Makes me feel like I just can't protect myself. I can't draw boundaries. I can't emotionally, cut off when someone's treating me badly, and I unconsciously leave myself exposed for abuse. You can write down 5 or 6 points for yourself right now. To understand the mother wound also, we have to understand some characteristic traits of the feminine. What separates a mother wound from the father wound is the expectations that a child has from the mother, which are different from the expectations a child has from the father, even though when you're born, you don't really think you know the difference between a masculine and a feminine parent. Your evolution already tells you the difference based on what the energies you have and the expectations you can have from each parental figure. What are some of the characteristics you'd expect from a motherly figure, from a maternal figure? I want you guys to throw that in the chat. What are some characteristics that you'd expect? Think of some feminine characteristics of individuals, and therefore you want to think of what you can get from, or what you should unconsciously expect from a mother figure. Nurturing, caring, beautiful. What else do we got? Empathetic, loving, support. Nice. I love all of these. This is going to blow your mind and give you so much more understanding into why these are some of the biggest wounds that we have for ourselves. Non-judgmental, calm, warm. Okay, what else? Love, unconditional love. Exactly. And that's a huge one, by the way. Okay, so here's a good question for you. Would you expect your father figure to always, or a father figure to always be available to you, let's say 24/7, with words of advice and love? Can anybody authentically say that? No, because our unconscious expectation is that of a father figure is that he's going to provide us the other places. Good. Dad has to work. Dad has to provide security. Dad has to provide XYZ. And we're not talking about trying to create biases among sexes here. I'm talking about evolution, literally from when early man and women were created, right? From who was created to be a hunter based on, more powerful levels of testosterone, stronger skeletal system, stronger survival instincts, etc. So this is just the evolution of how it's designed. So then what we'd expect from a mother figure is someone to be emotionally always available, right? Someone to, when you're crying or you're hurt, to be soothing, someone to be emotionally soothing. Now, if I am expecting someone to be emotionally soothing when I'm hurt, I want you guys to all pause here for a second and look at your relationships with your mothers and say, what was my mother figure like when I was emotionally hurt or physically hurt or scared? What was my mother figure like? Just think about that for a second. You can even journal that or write that down. How many of you, when you were emotionally hurt, had a soothing maternal figure available to you at all times? What are the things that we want from a mother? We want the mother to be nurturing. We want the mother to be supportive. We want the mother to be unconditionally loving when we are hurt. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. When you were hurt, how many of your mother figures, whether they knew it or not, provided you judgment, shame, or criticism instead of unconditional love? So you can see now already that when we were hurt, when we were wounded, what we received in our moments when we were like most vulnerable was more, even if it was 50% or even if it was 40%, more often than we would have liked, it was criticism, it was judgment, rather than it was unconditional love and support. Now, the biggest question I want to ask you here is, why do you think that mommy would give you like this judgment or criticism or shame or projection or anything else instead of unconditional love? Now, the real answer, which I think a lot of you have hit in this, as to why your mothers would give you X instead of Y, and Y assuming is what you really needed at that time, the real answer is because they just weren't capable. They weren't capable because of their own past, their own history, their own wounds, and their own story. But I want you to do me a favor right now. I want you to close your eyes for a second, all of you, okay? And I want you to think of to yourself that you want, love and connection and value, of course, from this mother figure, from your own mother, the person whose arms you were born into. And I want you to answer this question. How many of you feel, with your eyes closed, how many of you feel that you consciously or unconsciously still want that level of love, unconditional approval, and support and nurturing from your mother? Your eyes closed. I want you to raise your hands. Okay. Keep your hands raised. Okay. Open up your eyes. It's almost all of us, and the only, in my opinion, having worked with all of you on here, is the ones that I can see who didn't feel like they needed to raise their hands in many ways, were the ones who've had to go through so much of the trauma, healing, and the gauntlet to learn how to show up for themselves so that they didn't need to continuously expect showing, somebody else showing up in their life, especially a parental figure. This was one of the biggest things for me to learn and for me to grow from, is how could I learn two things? One, that my mother was never going to be able to show up for me in the way that I wanted and needed. And two, the bigger piece of the puzzle, how could I learn to show up for myself in the ways that I needed from her and that she just still couldn't give me? This is the entire answer to how we can actually work through this mother wound. Hey, and welcome to the Inner Yats YouTube page. If you like our content, make sure you click the like and the subscribe button so that you get more of these amazing videos that keep coming your way.